Welcome to Links Lives Natters, Episode 2. We're in for a real treat. It's Pride Month, and today's guest is Miranda Caddoo, also known as TallandSparkly. Miranda is a poet, a proud transgender lady living her life as it's always meant to be, happy. And now a quick word from our sponsors. J&S Plumbing. J&S Plumbing is your local, friendly, reliable plumbing and heating engineer covering Lincoln and surrounding areas. Our experienced and fully qualified heating engineers are on hand to carry out boiler installation, repairs and servicing. Just call 01522 708 208. That's 01522 708 208 or email sales@jasplumbingandheating.co.uk. Motorsource Group for everyday heroes. Motorsource Group offers new car discounts for people working in the NHS, the police, the prison service, fire and rescue, military and teachers too, with customers saving over £6,000 on average. Go to motorsourcegroup.com to find out more. Good morning, Miranda. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very excited to be talking to you on the Links Lives Natters podcast.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to get you on was obviously it's Pride Month and you had a very interesting journey. How did this all start for you?
Well, we could actually go back probably 50 years, but I suppose most important thing is to go back to when I first came out in 2012 to my wife. I'd only just recently lost my dad, and I was in a bit of a low place. I just sat down one evening at the tea table and said, "I've got something to tell you." Anyway, she burst out into tears, and she thought I was going to say I was seeing another woman. And I said, "Well, actually, I have been doing for years." When everything had calmed down, I showed her some pictures of me dressed as Miranda, and then that was it. 2016, I came out to the rest of the world as such. And in 2017, I transitioned full time. And in 2020, I had my operation in Brighton, and that's where we are today.
So how did you think your family took that? You know, were obviously from what you're saying, they were a little bit sort of like, wow. And obviously as the years have gone on, they've got to love Miranda, haven't they?
Yes, they have. It was a scary moment when I told Debs, my wife, but after about 18 months, once she'd got her head around everything, then she started to understand what it was like to be a trans person. But I kept telling her, look, let's just take everything slowly because it's going to be a big surprise to everybody. And so we then went on to my family, my close friends, and then loosely acquainted friends, and then the world in general.
When you came out to the world, how do you think the world saw you? You know, were you worried about going out as Miranda, seeing people you hadn't seen before, how they'd be?
Yeah, it's a scary moment. I used to go out when it was dark, basically, and go to places where we could meet up, where other trans people could meet up. And it took me a long time to sort of get all those things sorted out in my head. Today, it's a completely different world for me because I just don't overthink anything like I did back in those days. But it was a scary moment. My family, my two daughters, they were obviously shocked. But I kept telling them that, no matter what, I'm still your dad. That will never change. And most of my close friends said, we don't care what you are. We like you for who you are. And it was just, it was just a process from there on.
Yeah, because something that sort of happened quite unexpectedly to you was when you popped out somewhere, wasn't it? Do you want to tell people about what happened at the birdcage?
Yeah, the birdcage is, I always say, it's where my life began. There used to be a few of us would meet up on a Wednesday night for a curry and a glass of wine. And one night I was in on my own, and suddenly they started setting my microphone, and there was a chap called Ron Booth going round, and he was asking everybody if they wanted to be part of the open mic night. And he got to me and he says, "We're doing an open mic night. Would you like to do something?" I said, "Well, but what is an open mic night?" I had no idea. And anyway, he explained it was about either, poetry, music, telling jokes, that sort of thing. And I says, no, I think I'll just leave it for a while. And the next month I was in, and he said, yeah, he come across and asked me a very similar thing. And I said, no, I'm not going to do anything. Thank you, Ron. And then by the third month, he asked me, and I said, well, actually, I've written something. And he said, okay. He said, I'll put your name down. And then it all went on from there on.
I quite often seen you sort of like with your spoken word and your poetry. Do you think that's helped you sort of come out to the world a bit more?
Yeah, well, first of all, it helped me immensely to sort everything out in my head. And then to the wider public, explaining to them what it was like to be trans and who I was as a person. And that to me has been the most important thing, because it is a scary time when you do come out.
I imagine, because like, how have you found sort of Lincolnshire as a community regards to transgender and coming out? Have people embraced it? Do you find there's a lot of things to do in Lincolnshire, or do you think people could embrace it a bit more?
I think as far as places go, it's not quite as easy for people who are still struggling with their gender identity. Lincolnshire is no different from anywhere else. You'll always get those areas, those places where people are a little bit sort of, what's that, But I think overall, mainly in the cities, you're fine. I don't have any problems these days.
I also believe that you've celebrated something very special lately, haven't you?
Yes, my 23rd wedding anniversary.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very proud of you.
Well, it's I always call it partnership. Our marriage is a partnership. No matter what we're going through, it's a partnership. We have to deal with these things together. I mean, my wife could have chosen to have left me all those years ago, 10 years ago. But we actually went away for probably 2 or 3 weeks in our heads, the pair of us, just to try and sort out what we was going to do with the rest of our lives, And at that time, I didn't know whether I'd still be married tomorrow, next week, or even next year. And here we are, 23 years later on, still married, dealing with life as everyone has to do.
Yeah, because you've just been on a bit of an epic road trip, haven't you? Not that I'm jealous of your epic road trip, but you've been away to Scotland, and
Yeah.
and your journey and your adventures seemed amazing, especially when you were saying about the roads and stuff, driving your camper van around some of the roads. It was a bit hairy, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've been planning the tour of Scotland for probably a year now, and Debs has just recently retired. Well, actually, I was actually gone back on the bank with the NHS. I've been retired for over 10 years now. And we always said that we wanted to do a tour of Scotland, and in particular the NC 500, which is a bit of an iconic route. So, we set off on the 1st of April, and we got back home at the end of May. The scenery, the roads, everything, which was simply epic, and it's a part of my life I'll never forget. And we actually got a chance to go across the Outer Hebrides. We went to visit a friend of mine, or an ex-work colleague, and we stayed over there for nearly 5 days. And it was such a laid-back way of life. It was just unbelievable.
So one of the things I wanted you to do for our lovely audience was to recite some of your poetry or your spoken word, because it really has helped you come out as trans, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, enormously. And it's just, I advise anybody, if they're struggling with anything that's going on in their life, just sit down and write about it. I had no idea how to write 7 or 8 years ago. I just, I knew I could write. I'd been in part of an amateur dramatic society group. So I wasn't afraid of standing up in front of people, but actually putting a story together and expressing my innermost thoughts and feelings and doing it in such a way that people would understand was quite a scary moment. But, I've achieved quite a bit since then.
Is that where TallandSparkly came along?
Yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah, I wanted a handle because nobody could actually. Everybody could pronounce my first name, but my family name nobody could pronounce properly. So I thought, well, I'm going to have a stage name. So I started off calling myself Miranda James, which Jane is my middle name. And then TallandSparkly just sort of suddenly popped up one day, and people now
love it.
TallandSparkly, yeah.
I absolutely love it because it describes you to a T.
Yeah, because that's what I am. I'm tall and
you're tall and sparkly. Yeah, exactly.
Sparkly, yeah, absolutely. I mean, sparkly in my character, not necessarily wearing sparkly jumpers or anything like that.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's more of a personality thing. Yeah, when I've sat down and wrote things, it's usually been about during times when I've been at probably a low moment, and it's a bit of a sad thing, really, when you think about it, that you can only write when you're at your lowest. But there's one that I wrote. It was probably the second one I ever wrote, and it was to do with the night that I came out to my wife, and I wanted to call it a picture worth painting, and it goes something like this. I wanted to paint a picture of who I was. So when that day finally arrived, the day when I decided to take a step outside of my life, I was so fearful of what it would be like, scared to tread the unknown path, and all the time my hand shook as I held that palette knife. I applied the oil to a tightly stretched canvas, but as I did, the easel shook as if to say to me, that first application you make will be down to you. And as my hand reached out, I felt so anxious. Fear not, I told myself, it's in your head and what you need. And after all, who really cares about that picture you long to paint, except those you love the most and who may shed a tear? But what if they touch my canvas? Will it slowly start to bleed? The weeks went by as I approached that unfinished piece of work. I grabbed my paintbrush with an open heart. My body trembled like that of a newborn gasping for air, and my head spun and heart stuttered towards an important punctuation mark. But then, for a moment, I held my breath as I waited for that critique. My senses were honed after that time of dread. I was prepared but feared where I was about to tread as I finally claimed that selfishness, for I was, or so I thought, a painting unique. My heart pounded, but there was no going back. Whilst those questions were asked as I looked into her eyes, I sat there on the edge of my seat and witnessed those tears that were cried. So I said, I've laid my heart out before you with unselfish calm. I can never go back to what I once was, those years of a tormented soul and sometimes wanting to die are now laid before you with my outstretched palms. All I can ask is for you to be brave should our journey get rough, and don't be ashamed when our life together gets tough. But as I open my heart and prepare to tackle this stormy weather, we know it won't be easy, but as mountains we can walk tall together. Yesterday, a lifetime seems to have passed. And those first brushstrokes have now long since dried. Yesterday has gone, but will never be forgotten. And today, well, today is where every new painting begins. All those fears that once held me back are now long since gone. But to not have you to lean upon would mean life like a solitary swan. And though my heart will continue to beat and the world continue to turn, that painting I hung upon the wall may as well be embers in a fire as it burns. Yes, I was once lost, but now I can smile and say I've been found. I'm finally free. And just like the autumn leaf that once hung sad, we now know it never lasts. Our spring has sprung, and our hearts and smiles are oh so wide.
So, where do you think you are in your life? Because one of the things you said to me was, you're finally happy. And is that where Miranda is at the moment? She's happy.
Very happy, yeah. I think it's because, I've stopped overthinking about everything. I sort of split the world up into three parts. I think there's a very small, very tiny percentage right at the top who will never understand you, don't like you, and you may as well just forget about those, move on. Then there's this group of people right in the middle who know what you are, but they don't know how to talk to you. So they're afraid to ask you, but they want to know. And then you get this other group right at the far end who are so busy in their own lives, they've got so many things going on that they don't even see you. So why should we worry about anything in life? Just live your life. And that's where I am today. And, I always think about it. Yeah, you get the constant stares from some parts of society, whether it's because they've never seen a trans person before and they don't know what to say or how to react, or you will just get those people who just don't want anything to do with it, and that's fair enough. I don't worry about that. I just moved on from there. But these days I go out and I just feel so confident with myself. And if somebody wants to question me, then that's quite all right. I've usually got an answer for them, but that I don't worry too much about.
So,
those things.
Will we see you performing anytime soon again?
Yeah, I hope to be. The thing is, this year we're trying to do so many things, me and Debs, and we've got a few more trips to do yet. And I've sort of been telling people on the circuit that I will be along, but it's just the wrong time of the year at the moment. We're just trying to enjoy ourselves, enjoy our retirement together, But yeah, I will be along to Birdcage and the Green Room.
The Green Room.
Yeah, the Green Room down Tennycross Street.
I've heard about the Blue Room, but I didn't know there was a Green Room.
No. No, the Green Room. It's part of the Lincoln Amateur and Operatic Dramatic Society. They own the building and they have a small stage in the room, and there's a bar and everything. And it's a very friendly space. People go up there once a month and do whatever. It's usually poetry or telling a story. You occasionally get the odd comedian. But on the whole, it's a very friendly and safe space. And, I've got so many friends that go in there. The Birdcage, like I say, is the place where my life began for me. But it's the Birdcage can get quite noisy at times.
Yeah, I've been to a few gigs in there before. It's such a lovely venue, and Rachel.
Oh, Rachel,
lovely Rachel. We like Rachel a lot, and unfortunately, we're running out of time. We have to say goodbye to Miranda for the time being, but we will continue this journey. So thank you very much for your time today, Miranda.
And thank you for having me on the show. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember to like and subscribe on whichever service you are using. Thanks to J&S Plumbing and to Motorsource Group for their support. To the amazing Miranda for sharing her story with us. To my technical team for producing and editing the show. And finally, to all of you for listening, thank you.